Cut style. And today I want to do another ASMR video. And today I want to do a little bit with playing cards. I thought I'd just teach a game and maybe ramble a little bit about games and do some playing card sounds. I am a huge card playing fan. I like games of all kinds, not exclusive to card games, but the thing I love the most about cards is how versatile and portable and flexible a simple standard 52 card deck of playing cards is. You can bring one, they're very small, and the number of games you can play with between one just by yourself, with single player games, all the way through games with 10 or more people. I just love that about playing cards specifically over other board games. I love that aspect of them. I love how playing cards can bring people together. Games in general can bring people together. And I love how people can kind of rally and gather and socialize around a game or set of games. And how games can be so simple that anyone can pick them up without ever playing before, yet range to some of the most complex games that I've ever played before in my entire life. Some of you might know that I am a poker player and find No Limit Poker to be the most complex game I've ever played, most interesting, most stimulating intellectually. But I love learning games of all kinds. I love having to adapt to new games, getting to think critically, getting to interact with different people through different games. I love that aspect of gaming. There are a ton of games that you can learn with a standard deck. Some of the games that I most enjoy with a standard deck of cards are games like Hearts. I like games like Egyptian Rat Screw, which is very much a physical reflex game and mental reflex game as much as it is actual strategy. When I was a kid in middle school, when we were in the final days of school and there was nothing left to be taught, we were kind of just there as a formality. The most popular game was Spit, which is a 2-player game. One-on-one, where there are 2 piles, and you pretty much race complete your piles and then slap the smallest pile. I believe it's been years since I've played Spit, but that's a fun one-on-one game. Nowadays I enjoy, as a poker player, enjoy poker variations. My family, I don't play a lot of spades, but I do enjoy playing trick games, as my friends and family enjoy playing pinochle, which is not played with a standard deck, but is actually played with a pinochle deck. And a pinochle deck is basically a standard deck, except you remove all of the 2s through 8s. The deuces through 8s are removed, and instead replaced with another identical set of aces through 9s from the top down. So there'll be 2 aces of clubs, 2 aces of spades, 2 kings of clubs, 2 kings of spades, etc. So basically there's 4 of each rank, 2 of each suit for those rank. From ace down to king, queen, jack, 10, 9. Also interesting in pinochle is that 10s are actually ranked second highest behind ace. So it would be ace, 10, king, queen, jack, 9. And that's a very fun game, but it's kind of lost a bit of popularity or skipped a generation, as it seems most of the people who play it are older. And I personally believe that it's a fun game, but it has limited capacity for kind of creativity and further expansive thought, as it's relatively solvable. And that's why my friends and I, our favorite game to play if we have 4 players, is another partner's trick game similar to Pinochle, but it's played with a standard deck, and it's called Pitch. And from what I've seen from both Pinochle and Pitch, as we play them in my family and with my friends, are both different from how I've read them in other books. But in our version of Pitch, it's actually a much more complex strategy because we've changed certain of the rules, which make it, to me, less of a forced game, adding more decisions in, more uncertainty, more reading your opponents and the temperature of the game, and more room for experiment and innovation and creativity. So I like that. Because for me, part of the strategy or fun of any game is experiment. It's evolution and development. It's exploration, innovation, and creating theories and strategies, and then testing them out. It's very difficult to do anything with these cards on this surface, but I don't have access to my felt table right now. And I'm not sure how that would really sound anyway. I'll have to test it out in a future video. Because I love cards on felt. This slippery, slidey surface is a little bit different. But for any poker players out there, people who want a one-on-one game, or even if you aren't poker players, but you know the ranks of poker hands, and even if you don't know the ranks of poker hands, they aren't that difficult to learn. This is a game I really like, and I'm going to teach the simplest version of it that I know. There's lots of versions of it, and each of those versions can be more complex or different, or the scoring can be different, or the actual gameplay can be different, but this is the version that I first learned, and I think it's very easy. It's easy to score, and it's easy to play. So, it's Chinese poker, and it's a one-on-one game. Well, it's up to a 4-player game. My most common application of it is playing one-on-one, as it's easiest to score. But you can play between 2 and 4 players, and it's really not that much more difficult to score once you get the hang of it. So basically, each player is dealt 13 cards face down that they put into their hand to arrange. And that person will look at their cards. And they're gonna separate after looking at them and kind of maybe arranging the cards into different orders into 3 different poker hands in this combination of 3 at the top, and 5 in the middle, and 5 on the bottom. You set them up in this order. And the object of the game is that your opponent is going to set up an identical mirrored spread to yours, with their 3 at the top, then 5 in the middle, and 5 on the bottom. And the object of the game is ideally to have your top hand be a better poker hand than your opponent's top hand, and your middle hand be a better poker hand than their middle hand, and then your bottom hand be a better poker hand than their bottom hand. If you get all 3, you do what's called a scoop, and you scoop them for that hand, meaning you win all of the points that hand, and this is a zero-sum game. So of course it doesn't have to be gambled to play, but it's a zero-sum game, so the scoring is zero-sum in case anyone ever did want to gamble, just like any other poker game. And just like regular poker, you do not need to put any money on the line to be able to play. The chips are just done to keep score within the game. And they're also inherent to betting and other poker variations, but this one, it's very simple for on the road. You just keep a scorecard, or someone's able to keep track in their head. It's not that difficult. So when that happens, because it's a zero-sum game, scooping you get 6 points, and your opponent would lose 6 points. And now, most often, scooping does not happen, and things will happen like I will win the top hand, and then you will win the middle hand, and then maybe you'll win the bottom hand as well. And so you've won 2 out of 3, so you only get 1 point, and I lose 1 point for majority. So the scoring's pretty simple. You either get 1 point, get 6 points, lose 1 point, or lose 6 points. The scoring for this particular variation of this particular game. Again, people play different ways with different scoring and different things like that. Now, as you've noticed, there's only 3 cards at the top, and usually poker, you would have a 5-card hand. You can't make straights or flushes or full houses or 4 of a kind if you only have 3 cards, right? So, for the top hand, straights and flushes and full houses are all out. So, trips or 3 of a kind is the strongest possible hand, making 3 aces an unbeatable top hand. For the bottom and the middle, it's not the case anymore, and all poker hands are available. Now there's one last rule here, in that your hands must be placed in order of their relative strength to one another when you set your own 13-card hand. The bottom hand must be your strongest hand, must be your strongest 5-card poker hand, followed by the middle hand. That must be the second strongest, and then your top hand must be your weakest. So the finesse of the game comes from making ideally, each of your 3 hands make up your total 13-card hand to be just strong enough to beat your opponent's hand, your opponent's counterpart, whether that be top, middle, or bottom. Because if you put all of your strength on the bottom and then have nothing else to show for it, you still only would win 1 out of the 3 if your bottom holds up against their bottom. And you'd still lose that round, because you'd lose a point, because they'd win 2 out of 3. So the name of the game is to kind of get a gauge for how your opponent plays and play your hand that you're dealt the best you can to kind of spread the power between the 3 hands in what is perceived to be the optimal spread to be able to scoop, ideally, and win just as strong enough hand on the top, just strong enough in the middle, and just strong enough to win on the bottom. So I'm just going to run through one kind of sample hand here with just me, how I would play against an opponent. Or I can take these cards I've been dealt because I didn't have time to look at them. And you're kind of dealt some pairs and things like that. Let's see. And sometimes you have to split up pairs to make flushes or straights or things like that. So there's all kinds of decisions that are constantly being made. I don't have enough for 2 flushes, but I have enough for 1. But is that what I want to do? These are all things you have to look at. And oh boy, this is tough. And so sometimes there are difficult decisions that need to be made. Of course. Oh wow, that's strong. Oh, okay. I think this is my best option here. So, once you make the decision, I place my cards down. Into the respective order. And if I were to somehow make a mistake and either place them in the wrong order or have my middle be stronger than my bottom or my top be stronger than my middle or anything like that, what would happen is I would commit the only penalty you can commit. It's called fouling, and you would automatically get scooped that hand. So I recommend you be very careful when you place your cards down. Okay, so then once the other player I'm playing against or multiple players place their hands down, then we reveal, so we can start scoring. And up top, I have 2 9s and a jack for a pair of 9s with a jack kicker. And most of the time that's pretty strong to have any pair, and 9s is a pretty good pair. And then in the middle I have a straight, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, which most of the time I expect to win the middle. And against most players, I think my top 2 would win and my bottom would be close. I have a king high flush on the bottom. Here was my pair of 9s. Here's my 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And on the bottom I have flush, king high, king 10 high. And sometimes that'll win, sometimes people will put even stronger hands on the bottom and weaker ones in the middle, or whatever, so it's hard to say. But that's kind of the basics, and so you would score each individually, whether it's one-on-one or with multiple people. And that's basically the game. You can play as many or as few hands as you want, just like in a live poker cash game. And then at the end, you see the tally. One of you will be up a certain amount of points. And if it's one-on-one, the other person will be down that exact number of points, making a zero sum. And if it's multiple people, it might be 2 people are winning and 1 person is losing, or 1 person's winning and 2 people are losing in some combination to add up to 0. So anyway, that's Chinese poker. And I just wanted to share that quick game with you. Encourage people to play more card games and learn card games. It's really a lot of fun, and there's very simple card games like Crazy 8 or Go Fish or things like that that even children can play relatively easily and pick it up. All the way down to some very intellectually simple to play but very complex with the strategy that are very fun and very very powerful outlets for critical thinking and creativity and adaptation and application of strategy. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope everyone has a wonderful evening. Good night.